Welcome to Module 4, where we're going to explore some really interesting specialized options that serve specific communities and family needs. And we're starting with faith-based preschools, which actually serve about 15% of all working parents who use center-based care. That's a significant number, and there are some really compelling reasons why families choose these programs. First, let's be clear by what we mean by faith-based, because there's actually a pretty wide spectrum here. On one hand, you have preschools that are simply housed in religious buildings but operate pretty much like any other secular program. They might say a blessing before meals or celebrate religious holidays, but the daily curriculum focuses on typical early childhood development goals. On the other hand, you have programs where religious education is woven throughout the entire day. Children might start each morning with a prayer, learn Bible studies or religious concepts during circle time, and participate in chapel services. The teachers see their role as nurturing children's spiritual development alongside their academic and social growth. Most faith-based programs fall somewhere in the middle of this spectrum, and honestly, that's where it gets interesting for families who are exploring their options. These programs often combine the best of both worlds: solid early childhood education practices with values-based teaching that many families deeply appreciate. Let's talk about what this actually looks like in practice. In a Christian preschool, you might see children learning about kindness and sharing through stories about Jesus. They might sing religious songs during music time, pray before meals, and celebrate Christmas and Easter with pageants and special activities. But they're also doing all the typical preschool things: playing with blocks, painting pictures, learning numbers and letters, and developing social skills. Jewish preschools might incorporate Hebrew language learning, celebrate Shabbat on Fridays, and observe Jewish holidays like Passover and Hanukkah. Islamic preschools often include Arabic language exposure, daily prayers, and celebration of Islamic holidays and traditions. The specific religious content varies obviously, but the underlying approach is similar: integrating faith and learning in age-appropriate ways. Here's what many parents love about faith-based programs: the emphasis on character development and moral education. These programs explicitly teach values like compassion, honesty, gratitude, and service to others. In our increasingly complex world, many families appreciate having these conversations reinforced and supported in their child's school environment. The sense of community in faith-based programs can be extraordinary. Families often share similar values and life perspectives, which can create deep, lasting friendships. The school becomes part of a larger faith community with connections to the church, synagogue, or mosque that sponsors the program. This can provide incredible support for families, especially during challenging times. Many faith-based programs also have a strong commitment to serving their communities, regardless of the family's ability to pay. Churches and other religious organizations often subsidize their preschool programs, making them more affordable than comparable secular options. Some offer sliding scale tuition or scholarships for families in need. Now let's talk about the cost, because this is where faith-based programs can really be attractive. You're typically looking at $6,000 to $15,000 annually, which is often significantly less than high-end secular private programs. The religious organization usually provides the building and sometimes covers some of the operational costs, which helps keep the tuition low. Most faith-based programs offer flexible scheduling options. Some operate half-day programs that follow a traditional school calendar, while others offer full-day care year-round for working families. Many are located in churches or other religious buildings, which often have beautiful, spacious facilities with large outdoor areas. What's typically included in tuition? Religious instruction and materials, celebration of religious holidays, and often chapel services or other special religious activities. Many programs include snacks or meals, especially if they're part of a larger church food service operation. Field trips might include visits to religious sites or service projects in the community. So who thrives in faith-based programs? Obviously, families who share the religious beliefs of the program often find it's a perfect fit. But you might be surprised to learn that many programs welcome families from different faith backgrounds, or even families who aren't particularly religious but appreciate the values-based approach. Children who respond well to structure and routine often love the predictable rhythms of religious observance. Kids who enjoy stories and music are drawn to the rich traditions of religious songs, prayers, and narratives. And children who are naturally caring and empathetic often flourish in environments that explicitly value kindness and service. But faith-based programs aren't for everyone, and it's important to be honest about potential challenges. If your family's beliefs differ significantly from the program's religious teachings, your child might feel confused or conflicted. Some programs require families to affirm certain beliefs or agree to support the religious mission of the school. The level of religious content can vary dramatically even within the same faith tradition. Some programs have a light touch with religious elements, while others are quite intensive. it's crucial to understand exactly what you're signing up for and whether it aligns with your family's comfort level. Here's something to consider carefully. How will you handle questions that come up at home? If your child starts talking about religious concepts they've learned at school, are you prepared to engage with those conversations? Even if you appreciate the values being taught, you want to make sure you're comfortable with the specific religious content. When evaluating faith-based programs, ask detailed questions about religious instruction. How much time is devoted to religious activities versus general early childhood education? What specific religious concepts are taught? How are families with different beliefs or questions welcomed and supported? Visit during religious activities if possible. Observe a chapel service or a prayer time to see how children respond and how teachers handle the religious elements. Are children engaged and comfortable, or do they seem confused or disinterested? Ask teacher qualifications too. Are teachers required to share the religious beliefs of the program? Do they have proper early childhood education training, or are they hired primarily for their faith commitments? You want teachers who are both spiritually aligned with the program and professionally qualified to work with young children. Consider the long-term implications as well. If your child attends a faith-based preschool, will you continue with the religious education in elementary school? How will you handle the transition if you choose a secular elementary program? Some children adapt easily to different environments, while others find big changes in educational philosophy challenging. Here's what's really beautiful about high-quality faith-based programs. They often create incredibly nurturing, value-centered environments where children develop strong moral foundations alongside academic and social skills. Children learn they're part of something bigger than themselves and that their actions can make positive differences in the world. The downside is that these programs can sometimes be less diverse in terms of family backgrounds, socioeconomic status, or cultural perspectives. If exposing your child to diversity is important to you, you'll want to ask about the school's approach to inclusion and multicultural education. One more consideration. Some faith-based programs have policies about family structure, lifestyle choices, or other personal matters that might not align with your family's situation. It's worth asking about these policies up front to avoid any surprises or uncomfortable situations later. But for families who do find a good match, faith-based preschools can provide an incredibly rich, supportive environment that nurtures the whole child, mind, body, and spirit. The combination of quality early childhood education with explicit character development and spiritual growth can be exactly what some families are looking for. Parent cooperative preschools. Now let's talk about something completely different. Parent cooperative preschools, or co-ops as they're usually called. And I have to tell you, co-ops are one of the best kept secrets in early childhood education. They offer incredible quality at a fraction of the cost of traditional private programs, but they're definitely not for every family. The concept is beautifully simple. Parents work together to create and run a preschool for their children. Instead of paying professional staff to do everything, families contribute their time and energy to keep the costs down while maintaining high-quality programming. It's like a potluck dinner, but for preschool. The history of co-op preschools is actually pretty inspiring. The first one was started in 1916 by a group of faculty wives at the University of Chicago who wanted quality care for their children while they pursued their own interests. During World War II, co-ops expanded as women needed childcare while contributing to the war effort. Today, there are co-ops all over the world serving families who want high involvement in their children's early education. Here's how co-ops typically work. Each family commits to working in the classroom on a rotating basis, usually 1 day per week for each child enrolled. So if you have one child in a class of 12, you might work every few weeks. Parents also take on additional responsibilities like maintaining the playground, managing finances, organizing fundraisers, or coordinating field trips. The classroom experience in a co-op is usually play-based and child-centered, with activities designed to support all areas of development. You'll typically find a professional teacher or director who provides educational leadership and trains parents in classroom management, child development, and appropriate activities. What makes co-ops special is the incredible level of parental involvement and community building. You're not just dropping your child off at school, you're actively participating in their educational experience. You get to observe how they interact with peers, see what captures their interest, and understand their learning style in ways that aren't possible when you're just hearing about it secondhand. The parent education component is huge in most co-ops. Regular meetings focus on child development topics, parenting strategies, and educational philosophy. While many co-ops are affiliated with community colleges, and parents can actually earn college credits for their participation. It's like getting a crash course in early childhood development while your child is learning too. Now let's talk about the financial benefits, because this is where co-ops really shine. Since families provide much of the labor, costs are dramatically lower than traditional programs. you're typically looking at $3,000 to $8,000 annually, sometimes even less. That's often half or a third of what you'd pay for comparable private programs. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Co-ops require significant time commitment from families. We're not just talking about showing up for your classroom day. There are monthly parent meetings, work parties to maintain the facility, fundraising events, and various committees that need volunteers. Some families estimate they spend 10 to 15 hours per month on co-op responsibilities beyond their classroom time. The scheduling can be challenging too. Most co-ops operate part-time programs, typically 2 to 4 days per week for a few hours each day. This works great for families with flexible schedules or stay-at-home parents, but it can be tough for families where both parents work full-time traditional jobs. So, who thrives in co-ops? Families who want to be highly involved in their children's education absolutely love the cooperative model. Parents who enjoy building community and forming close relationships with other families find co-ops incredibly rewarding. Families on tight budgets appreciate the significant cost savings, and children often thrive with the extra attention and small class sizes that parent involvement makes possible. The social benefits for both children and parents can be extraordinary. Kids develop relationships with multiple adults who know them well and care about their development. Parents form support networks with other families going through similar experiences. Many co-op families maintain friendships for years or even decades after their children graduate. But co-ops definitely aren't for everyone. If you're not comfortable with working with small children or managing classroom situations, the required participation can feel overwhelming. Families with demanding work schedules might struggle to meet the time commitments. And if you prefer to have clear boundaries between your child's school and your personal time, the intensive involvement might feel intrusive. The group dynamics can be challenging too. Since families are running the school together, there can be conflicts about educational philosophy, discipline approaches, or operational decisions. Some co-ops handle these tensions well, while others struggle with personality conflicts or disagreements about direction. When evaluating co-ops, pay close attention to the parent education component and support systems for new families. Good co-ops provide training for parents who will be working in classrooms, clear expectations about responsibilities, and mentorship programs to help new families learn the ropes. Ask about the professional staff structure. Most successful co-ops will have at least one professional teacher or director who provides educational leadership and continuity. This person should have proper early childhood education credentials and experience working with parent volunteers. Observe the classroom during a regular day when parents are working. Do the parent volunteers seem confident and engaged? Are the children responding well to having multiple parents in the room? Is there a good balance between parent involvement and professional guidance? Ask about the time commitments in detail. How many hours per month are families expected to contribute? What happens if someone can't fulfill their responsibilities due to work or family obligations? How are conflicts or problems handled within the parent community? Consider your own family's readiness for this level of involvement. Are you excited about the prospect of working closely with other families? Or does it feel like one more thing on your already overwhelming to-do list? Co-ops work best when families are genuinely enthusiastic about the collaborative model, not just attracted by the lower costs. One thing that's really wonderful about co-ops is how they can accommodate different family strengths and interests. Maybe you're great with finances and can handle bookkeeping responsibilities. Maybe you love organizing events and can coordinate fundraisers. Maybe you're handy and can help with facility maintenance. Good co-ops find ways for every family to contribute meaningfully. The transition to elementary school can be interesting for co-op kids. They're often very comfortable with adult attention and guidance since they've worked with many different adults. They tend to be confident expressing their needs and ideas, but they might need some adjustment time in more structured, less individualized elementary settings. Many families find that the co-op experiences changes their entire perspective on education and parenting. You learn so much about child development, different parenting approaches, and your own child's unique personality. Parents often say they become better advocates for their children and more confident about their parenting decisions. Language immersion programs. Let's talk about language immersion preschools because these programs are becoming increasingly popular as families recognize the incredible advantages of early bilingual education. And the research on this is absolutely fascinating. Young children's brains are basically wired for language acquisition in ways that we adults can only dream about. Language immersion programs operate on a simple but powerful principle. Children learn a second language most effectively when they're using it for real communication, not just studying it as a subject. So instead of having a Spanish class for 30 minutes a day, children spend their entire preschool experience communicating in their target language. The most common immersion languages in preschools are Spanish, French, Mandarin Chinese, and German, though you'll also find programs in languages like Italian, Japanese, Portuguese, and others, depending on your community's demographics and interests. Spanish immersion is by far the most prevalent, reflecting both the growing Latino population in the United States and the practical advantages of Spanish-English bilingualism. Here's how immersion typically works in preschool settings. Teachers and staff communicate primarily or exclusively in the target language throughout the day. Children learn vocabulary and grammar naturally through songs, stories, games, and daily routines. They're not translating back and forth or memorizing verb conjugations. They're just living and playing in the language. Most preschool immersion programs use what's called total immersion, where the target language is used for nearly all instruction and interaction. Some programs use partial immersion, where part of the day is conducted in the target language and part in English. Both approaches can be effective, though research suggests that more exposure generally leads to better outcomes. The cognitive benefits of early bilingualism are pretty remarkable. Bilingual children often show enhanced executive function skills, things like attention control, cognitive flexibility, and working memory. They tend to be better at multitasking, problem solving, and thinking creatively. Some research even suggests that bilingualism may protect against cognitive decline later in life. But here's what really gets me excited about immersion programs: the cultural awareness and global perspective that children develop. They're not just learning a language, they're learning about different ways of seeing and understanding the world. They celebrate holidays from different cultures, learn songs and stories from other countries, and often develop a natural curiosity about diversity and difference. Now, let's talk about concerns that parents sometimes have, because I want to address these head on. The biggest worry is usually about English language development. Will focusing on another language interfere with my child's English skills? The research is pretty clear on this. Children in quality immersion programs typically perform as well as or better than their monolingual peers on English language assessments by elementary school. There can be a temporary period where children seem to mix languages or prefer the immersion language for certain topics. This is completely normal and actually shows that their brains are working exactly as they should. Most children sort this out naturally as they get more exposure to English in elementary school. Another concern is about academic preparation. Are children learning the pre-literacy and math skills that they need for kindergarten if instruction is in another language? Again, research shows that cognitive skills transfer across languages. A child who learns to count in Spanish can easily apply those number concepts in English. Reading skills developed in one language support reading development in another. Cost-wise, language immersion programs tend to be expensive because they require teachers who are not only qualified in early childhood education, but also native or near native speakers of the target language. You're looking at $12,000 to $20,000 annually, sometimes more in major metropolitan areas. The teacher qualifications are crucial in immersion programs. You want teachers who speak the target language naturally and fluently. They understand childhood development and know how to make language input comprehensible for young learners. This combination of skills is valuable and often commands higher salaries. Most immersion programs operate full-day schedules since maintaining the language environment requires extended exposure. Part-time programs can work, but children need sufficient time in the target language to really develop proficiency. Many programs operate year-round to maximize language exposure. What's typically included? All instruction and materials in the target language, cultural celebrations and activities, and often native-speaking guest visitors or cultural specialists. Some programs include meals with foods from the target culture, which adds another layer of authentic cultural experience. Who thrives in language immersion? Children who are naturally social and communicative often love the challenge of expressing themselves in a new language. Kids who enjoy music and rhythm tend to pick up language patterns quickly. Children from bilingual families often feel especially comfortable in multilingual environments. Families who value cultural diversity and global awareness are naturally drawn to immersion programs. Parents who speak the target language themselves often love the opportunity to share that linguistic heritage with their children. And families who are planning international moves or have global career aspirations appreciate the practical advantages of bilingualism. But immersion isn't right for every child or family. Children who are struggling with language development in their first language might find the additional linguistic demands overwhelming. Kids who are very shy or anxious about communication might feel frustrated when they can't express themselves easily in the target language. From a family perspective, you need to be prepared to support the language learning at home, even if you don't speak the target language yourself. This might mean finding books, music, and videos in the target language, or connecting with other immersion families for playdates and cultural activities. When evaluating immersion programs, pay attention to the teacher's language skills and cultural knowledge. Can they communicate naturally and expressively in the target language? Do they understand the cultural context behind the language they're teaching? Look for evidence of authentic language use, not just translation or vocabulary drilling. Children should be using the target language for real communication, asking for help, expressing feelings, solving problems, not just repeating phrases or singing songs. Ask about the program's approach to English language support. How do they ensure children are developing age-appropriate English skills alongside the target language? How do they handle children who are struggling with the linguistic demands? Consider the long-term language pathway too. What immersion options are available in elementary school and beyond? Starting language immersion in preschool is wonderful, but children need to continue exposure to maintain and develop their bilingual skills. The beautiful thing about language immersion when it works well is that children develop not just bilingual skills, but a kind of cognitive flexibility and cultural openness that serves them throughout their entire lives. They learn that there are multiple ways to express ideas and understand the world. They develop confidence in their ability to learn new things and adapt to different environments. And in our increasingly connected global economy, the practical advantages of bilingualism continue to grow. These children are developing skills that will benefit them academically, professionally, and personally for the rest of their lives. But remember, language immersion is a long-term commitment. The benefits really accrue over years of continued exposure and use. If you're considering this option, think carefully about whether you can support your child's bilingual development beyond the preschool years. All right, that covers our specialized and community-based options. We've explored faith-based programs that integrate values and spiritual development, parent co-ops that build incredible communities while keeping costs low, and language immersion programs that open up whole new worlds of communication and cultural understanding. In our final module, we're going to put it all together and talk about how to actually make your decision. We'll cover evaluating costs and value, conducting school visits like a pro, and trusting your instincts to find the perfect match for your unique child and family. You're almost there.